Staff Room Monologues. Brought to you in association with the National Union of Teachers. The voice of the profession.
How Are You is written by a special needs teacher from Norfolk, Laura Owen. There were a lot of entries about the stresses of the job, but there was an honesty and integrity about this piece of writing that really made it leap off the page for all of us.
How are you? Mrs. Simmons asked me as she passed me in the corridor. She paused briefly in her progress, but all her body language indicated she was moving on quickly. Her face had that complex mix of feelings and meanings I'd been getting from everyone else. She'd asked the question, but wasn't really sure she wanted the answer. Especially after I'd been away for so long. I mean, after all, what was I really meant to say in response? The antibiotics are finished and I'm fighting fit, thank you. The chemotherapy's over and I've been given the all clear. The plaster's off, but I'm still having physio. I haven't cried for 2 days put together. Hardly has the same effect. The children are finding it difficult. All they were told is that Mr. Majid is ill and will be off for a while. On Tuesday, I was up at the board, writing the date and making arrangements for little Matthew while the rest of the class went swimming. He's been banned from the pool after splashing non-swimming Sabrina repeatedly in the face. Although, in fairness, I think flicking George with a towel in the changing rooms and refusing to put his pants on were probably the straws which broke that particular camel's back. And by Wednesday, I was gone indefinitely. You know, I still haven't managed to get over the humiliation of how it all started. Mr. Jones came in and asked me to teach his ICT class that afternoon. I didn't know I'd be covering for him. I had 1,000 other things that needed to get done, what a teacher hasn't. But I was free that lesson. And covering for absent staff as well within my job description. And besides, I could teach ICT stood on my head with one hand tied behind my back. Okay, it was 6R, but even so. And then without warning, the tears started running down my face. And once it started, it seemed there was no stopping them. And Mr. Jones shifted from one foot to the other and looked embarrassed. And the more I looked at him, looking like that, the worse it got. It's ridiculous, really. Before I knew it, I was stood in front of the head, explaining the inexplicable, and was being sent home with instructions to see a doctor and get myself sorted out. When I see the other staff, I know I let them down. They don't say anything, but I know that when I left, their workload must have shot up. I let the children down as well, and that's something much harder to deal with. There's so much with my class that hasn't been done. There's, I mean, the supply teachers do their best, but they don't do planning, assessments, IEPs. It's not their job. Dr. Harrison says I'm too hard on myself. She says I don't need to be the perfect teacher, just a good enough one, but you know, good enough just isn't good enough for me. So what am I supposed to do? Give in? Compromise my principles and but remain a teacher, just do the best I can, or cut my losses, accept that I failed, and move on to something else. be kind to yourself. Dr. Harrison says, take care of yourself. Spend time doing something you enjoy. You know what? I don't know what that is anymore. Teaching, planning for teaching, making resources for teaching, reading books and magazines about teaching, reading children's novels I might use in my teaching, going on courses about teaching, and speaking to teachers. That's all I've done for the last 7 years. I've forgotten how to do anything else. I had a girlfriend a couple of years ago. That was nice. She was a reception teacher, and we met on a professional development course, but it didn't work out. It just wasn't the time to make a proper go of it. None of those things are the main problem, though, to be honest. I don't know what is. My dad died last year, but that wasn't it. It was a long illness. It was expected. And plenty of people lose parents without falling to bits. We didn't even get on. It's not a job, even though it's stressful and I work all the hours that God sends. It's what I've trained to do. It's what I've wanted to do. It's not that I'm lonely. I know plenty of people through my work, people that I have stuff in common with. That's good, isn't it? I mean, money's tight. I'm repaying the student debt and the key worker loan on the flat that I bought, and it's a lot more expensive than I thought it would be, but that's not it either. Money isn't everything. To be honest, I don't have any particular reason why I've been depressed, if that's what I've been. I guess I just don't have what it takes to do this job, probably. I can't think about any of that right now. I've got to do the risk assessment for the visit to the cathedral, and it's little Matthew's annual review meeting tomorrow night. Goodness knows what I'll say to his parents, particularly after the recent incident with the rubber glove. They'll probably blame his behaviour on a lack of continuity and care and teaching over the last few weeks. That'll be my fault. They're probably right. You know, I don't suppose I'll show up, actually. The ones you really need to talk to rarely do. It's going to be me, the TA and the caseworker sorting it out in their absence, as usual. So, how am I? Well, it's just as I told Mrs. Simmons. I'm fine, thank you. I'm fine.
I heard about the competition in the NUT magazine. I was sitting reading it over a cup of coffee, and it was just a little write-up, and it caught my interest. I've always been interested in creative writing, but have had a terrible case of writer's block for some years. Because teaching takes up so much of my time and attention, and I love it, there was very little space for other things. And this caught my eye, and it seemed like a manageable project and somewhere that I could start to get back into writing.
Simon, where are you going to be? This is pretty wide, actually.
I was prepared for you not to say that.
I think it is important to have creative outlet beyond the classroom. And obviously all the things that you do outside of the classroom you bring into your teaching in the end anyway, so yeah, it's wonderful to have other interests.
You're fine. That's sorry, it was my fault completely. I was wrong for it. Yeah, good.
Right, I think we'll go for a take then, please.
Tell me if this is crossing.
Jean.
It's an easier position for me. You don't really want to come in the line.
There were lots of issues that were in my mind when I was writing the piece. I came to teaching later in life, but have worked with a lot of younger teachers and been interested in how the workload and their passion for the job impacts on the rest of their lives.
splashing non-swimming Sabina repeatedly in the face with water, although I think freaking Jordan's
The light's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, really.
pants on were the straws that broke that particular camera.
I think primary teaching presents quite a range of difficulties for young men as a career because it's a very female-dominated environment, and the support networks that female teachers have may not always be accessible for a young male teacher trying to work in that environment.
Wednesday I was...
I feel so sorry for him. I'm going to go and make him a cup of tea now, don't you? All right.
Pat him on the back.
It's been really wonderful watching Riz bring my character to life and to hear my words coming out of his mouth and to watch the whole process and the way it's put together. It's been a wonderful opportunity. I think other teachers and other people who work in education will recognise people they know. I think the experience of my character is quite common in primary education, and yes, I think that it will resonate with other staff.
Staff Room Monologues. Brought to you in association with the National Union of Teachers, the voice of the profession.